More details have been released as to why Molly Qerim abruptly quit ESPN. And when I say abruptly quit, I mean she left work, I think it was on Monday, and she never came.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
Was Molly Qerim's exit from ESPN really just a fresh start? Or are we looking at a plot so tangled it could make even the most jaded ESPN insider sweat? That's the question setting social feeds on fire and putting every armchair detective in sports media on full alert. We're not talking about a typical TV shakeup or the gentle fading out of an anchor's contract. No, this is a story packed with shadowy accusations, personal vendettas, and a level of double-crossing usually reserved for late-night thrillers. The drama hasn't just touched ESPN, it's pulled back the curtain on a network in crisis, and no one seems ready to answer for what's really gone down.
Oftentimes, when you have someone abruptly quit a job, they're not leaving on the best terms. Normally, it's polite to give your employer some kind of notice.
For over a decade, Molly Qerim was the steady hand at the First Take desk, standing shoulder to shoulder with Stephen A. Smith, wrangling his on-air fire, and keeping the show's egos from boiling over. To the outside world, it looked like the recipe for live sports debate perfection. Until the morning Molly vanished from the lineup, sending the rumor mill into a frenzy. Yes, she gave the usual dignified farewell on Instagram, name-checking brilliant, passionate, and entertaining voices in sports, and talking up her gratitude for the show's loyal audience. But as anyone who's watched this business for more than 5 minutes knows, public statements are where the real story goes to hide. If you were only half paying attention, you might have missed the way ESPN scrambled to put a PR bandage over the wound. Out came the tributes, the gentle thank yous, the airbrushed nostalgia, but not a single word about the firestorm gathering just off camera.
She was quitting right now. Both ESPN and Molly Qerim, they are trying to polish the They're trying to make this look like an amicable divorce. And look, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe they couldn't come to an agreement and they agreed to amicably part ways. I'm more interested in...
And what a firestorm in a move straight out of a B-level soap. The opening allegations didn't come from ESPN, nor from Molly herself, but from a voice claiming to be Stephen A.'s own ex-girlfriend. This self-styled whistleblower didn't just toss out casual complaints, she delivered a blowtorch to the studio's reputation. According to her, Molly Qerim was orchestrating a ruthless campaign to take down Stephen A. Smith, leaking so-called sensitive contract details, feeding rumors to his rivals, and here's where jaws hit the floor, allegedly planting a story about harassment that threatened to torpedo his entire career. The alleged motive is a cocktail of revenge, power hunger, and what the accuser painted as pure envy over Stephen A.'s ever-ballooning contract. Molly wants to make Stephen A. money when she doesn't have Stephen A. talent, she sneered in a now infamous rant, making it clear that this was about more than just hosting duties. It was about who owned the stage and who was being pushed into the wings.
Well, let's remember, wasn't it just last week Stephen A. was on air bragging about the people he stood up for to get paid, and how many, Cam, I did it for Shannon Sharp, and I did it for this person and that person. And when I look at the abrupt, I'm not coming into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
That also is maybe there's pointing a finger at Stephen A.
Even if you take all that with a shaker of salt, there's no denying the atmosphere at ESPN was primed for a meltdown. For months, eagle-eyed fans and staffers alike noticed the tension between Molly and Stephen A. wasn't just the usual on-air sparring. It was getting raw, personal, and at times downright uncomfortable. Social clips started to surface, capturing the pair clashing live over everything from guest lineups to petty jabs about salary and control. There was Molly dropping lines about not being able to even go to the bathroom without Stephen A. Smith knowing, and Stephen A. shooting back with the kind of half-joking, half-serious barbs that had people wondering just how much of their feud was spilling out from the green room. And in a business where whispers move faster than official statements, that tension fanned 1,000 conspiracies. But the true boiling point, we're told, came just weeks before Molly's walk-off. Multiple sources point to a behind-the-scenes eruption at ESPN's Connecticut headquarters, a fight so heated that security was called in to break it up. Depending on who you believe, the confrontation was a perfect storm of years-long resentment. Stephen A. allegedly accusing Molly of betrayal, Molly firing back with claims of being sabotaged, and a room full of stunned producers scrambling to keep the details off Slack and out of sight of the ever-watchful bosses. It wasn't the kind of argument that ends with a handshake and a see you Monday. This was scorched earth, the kind of shouting match that signals there's no turning back, only fallout to manage.
I think we'll start with Molly Qerim.
Oh, she's out of
She, yesterday when we talked, we knew that she was leaving, but we didn't know she was leaving like immediately, which is an indication that, man, this thing's a bit more complicated than just they couldn't settle on the money. It just seems more serious. She's off the show.
The fallout, as always, landed first on ESPN's door. Top brass were quick to put out gentle, no controversy here statements, painting Molly's exit as a matter of personal growth, a choice to turn the page. Burke Magnus, ESPN's president of content, offered up the corporate poetry, calling Molly an integral part of ESPN since 2006, and insisting the network tried to have her do other things. It was, he claimed, business. But as every TV insider knows, when someone says there's no shoe that's gonna drop, you better brace for a boot to the face. The timing was suspiciously perfect. As Molly's goodbye was trending, news broke that Malika Andrews had signed a blockbuster new contract, sending fans into a tailspin. Was this just coincidence? Or a calculated move to swap out one strong female anchor for another, all while keeping the real drama hidden from the camera? And we can't overlook the way Stephen A. himself played his hand. On air, he mourned the loss. To say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement, but in the same breath, he made sure to keep the juiciest details under lock and key. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business, he told his audience. But it's not as if I know all the details. That's the equivalent of putting a do not enter sign on a room where you've just heard a window shatter. Off air, the message was even more cryptic. That story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No, which is of course the perfect recipe for maximum speculation. And a sign that whatever went down, it wasn't neat, wasn't pretty, and definitely wasn't ready for the daylight. While all this played out, the rumor mill kept spinning. Social media sleuths started unearthing every awkward on-air exchange, every offhand remark, every moment when Molly and Stephen A. looked like they'd rather be anywhere else but next to each other. Critics zeroed in on a recent live segment where Stephen A. made a joke about Molly's eating habits during commercial breaks. A throwaway line, maybe, or maybe another not-so-subtle dig that spoke to deeper cracks in their partnership. The backlash was immediate, with fans calling the remark inappropriate, some even suggesting Stephen A. was nursing a personal grudge from way back. Suddenly, every smile, every sigh, every sideways glance on First Take was being dissected like a clue in a true crime documentary.
Whether she goes to FS1 or launches her own show on YouTube, I wish Molly Qerim nothing but the best. I don't want to see her fail, but at the same time, I don't see a path to success. It is hard to build an audience by yourself. It's hard to build and sustain an audience when it's just you.
Meanwhile, the so-called receipts from Stephen A.'s alleged ex started to gain traction, with claims that Molly not only tried to manufacture scandals, but was also working in concert with certain ESPN managers who had their own reasons to resent Stephen A.'s meteoric rise. It was a tangle of ego, jealousy, and good old-fashioned workplace backstabbing, the kind of stuff that never makes the annual report, but always winds up in the tabloids. Even more brazen was the assertion that Molly's contract demands had been ballooning out of proportion, allegedly sparking a war behind the scenes over who really deserved to call the shots and cash the bigger checks. If you believe the conspiracy crowd, ESPN was less interested in keeping the peace than in protecting their own image, especially with ratings pressure and rival networks circling like sharks. All of this raises the million-dollar question: what would drive a network staple like Molly to risk it all? Reputation, alliances, even her health, on a campaign of sabotage? If that's really what happened, was this about wanting Stephen A. out, wanting his paycheck, or just not wanting to be pushed aside as the next big name and next big contract rolled in? The truth may be muddied by personal bias and self-preservation, but the stakes couldn't have been higher. Molly was already fighting a private battle with illness, making her an unlikely villain, but the timing of her illness being mentioned in the ex's rants set off another wave of chatter. Was this sympathy play or a way to slip quietly out the side door before things really exploded?
A lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business, but it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her, but in the end, she made a decision.
We're left staring at the fallout, a studio suddenly without its guiding anchor, a cast of candidates waiting in the wings, and a network that wants everyone to believe this was just business as usual. But as the embers of this scandal glow brighter, we're still missing the final puzzle pieces. Stephen A. keeps dropping those tantalizing hints. Enough to keep the public guessing, but never enough to close the case. Why won't he spill the truth? Is he protecting himself, protecting Molly, or protecting something or someone much bigger? As we keep following the trail of leaks, side eyes, and not so subtle shade, it's clear this story is just heating up. Stephen A. Smith, never known for subtlety, suddenly became a master of restraint the moment Molly Qerim's exit went public. His words felt like a velvet rope strung across a crime scene. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. It's not as if I know all the details, but we know that's only half the truth. When has Stephen A. ever held back unless the stakes were radioactive? His tight lips and selective amnesia say more than any tell-all interview ever could. Is he afraid of implicating himself, or is he guarding secrets that, if aired, could detonate careers all the way to the C-suite? We're left picking through his cryptic clues like detectives on a stormy night, watching for the flicker of a light behind those blackout curtains.
Jason, I actually watched that whole video clip of Stephen A. Smith. I just thought it was fun. It ain't none of y'all business. It was a contract negotiation. Well, so that was about the money. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for cluing us. It's always about the money, though. It's like in boxing. Why didn't this fight happen? Easy, there wasn't enough.
As Molly packs her bags and leaves the ESPN studios in the rear view, chaos moves in to take her place. The network, which once thrived on loud personalities, now finds itself in damage control mode. Malika Andrews, promoted at breakneck speed, lands a contract extension so sweet, it almost seems like a reward for being in the right place at the right time. It's a move that caught the public's attention, and for good reason. Was this in the works all along? Did the network orchestrate a clean swap, sliding Molly out the back door so Malika could sweep in and claim the spotlight? Or was Molly simply another pawn taken out by a far bigger, messier chess match happening behind the scenes? One producer, who survived more shakeups than a California fault line, told us that power struggles have become the new sport inside ESPN's glass towers, and nobody, not even a veteran host, is safe from getting body checked by the system. When we follow the money, the pattern gets clearer. Insiders point to the swelling influence of Stephen A. Smith, whose paychecks now rival NFL coaching salaries, and whose say-so has begun to overshadow even some of the old guard execs. Every time ESPN hands over another multi-million-dollar contract to Stephen A., the tension in the studio ratchets up a notch. It's no secret that several longtime anchors and producers have started to bristle at his growing power. With Stephen A. calling more shots and Malika on the fast track to her own empire, it's hard not to see Molly's departure as a casualty of this internal turf war. The suits can say it's business as usual, but the timing looks engineered. A careful extraction of anyone not fully aligned with the network's new power structure.
When I heard that it was immediate, I was like, oh, she must already have a job lined up. Mm-hmm. And the job that she has lined up must be some sort of competitor to ESPN. And so that made me, is she going to Fox Sports?
And then, just when we thought things couldn't get more tangled, the whispers started about Molly's so-called blackmail folder. That's right, more than one well-placed source claims that Molly kept a secret stash, a digital arsenal loaded with sensitive emails, private recordings, and years of off-the-record gossip about top execs and on-air talent. If these rumors are even half true, that folder could be the equivalent of a nuclear button in the hands of someone looking to leverage a better deal, or at the very least, ensure a soft landing outside of Bristol. Some even speculate that the mere existence of this dirt is what made ESPN's leadership so eager to fast-track her exit, and so cautious about how the story leaked out. What kind of secrets might Molly have stashed away? A former production assistant claims she saw emails detailing contract squabbles and unsent draft complaints about certain colleagues. Another source swears there are voice memos documenting uncomfortable moments between anchors and management. The exact contents remain a mystery. ESPN's legal team has gone into full Fort Knox mode, but just the idea that such a file exists is enough to keep every executive glancing over their shoulder. It's a scenario ripped straight from a boardroom thriller. What if one well-timed leak set the whole house of cards tumbling down?
The other thing I thought, Steve, was when you pay Stephen A. Smith $20 million, that means, okay, well, whoever his co-host is, they're going to want an exorbitant amount of money. And so she may have been making $2.5, $3 million as the host. Well, when Stephen A. is sitting there making 20, well, maybe now she wants to make 10.
While some loyal fans rally behind Molly as a survivor fighting back against a hostile workplace, others see her as a master manipulator who finally pushed her luck too far. In truth, it might be both. After all, in a world where influence is measured in trending hashtags and contract zeros, is there any such thing as playing fair? Even as Molly's official exit statements radiate positivity, I'm so grateful for what this journey has given me: lifelong friendships, unforgettable memories, and the chance to be part of something truly special. We can't ignore the sound of doors slamming shut behind her, but the ripple effects are bigger than one host's career. In the wake of Molly's disappearance, ESPN faces a crossroads. The network that once looked unshakable is suddenly being picked apart by whispers of backstabbing, ambition, and unchecked power. Staffers worry that the very culture that made the brand famous is now devouring its own. Who will be the next to pursue other opportunities? Which story will be quietly buried before it can reach the front page? Even as executives insist that there's no shoe that's going to drop, every former host, producer, and intern with a grudge is holding their breath, waiting for the next revelation. And Stephen A., his cryptic silence only fuels the frenzy. He's kept just enough distance to let the rumor mill spin out of control, never denying, never confirming, but always reminding us that in this business, everyone has something to hide. Will he emerge untouched, or will the coming weeks force him into the harshest spotlight of his career? Already, the talk shows and podcasts are lining up to dissect every word, every awkward smile, every on-air comment that might point to the next scandal. ESPN has always loved its debates, but nobody's ready for the one that's about to play out behind the scenes.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a coworker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years.
What happens if Molly's rumored blackmail folder ever surfaces? Could we see contract negotiations blow up, anchors walk out, or execs suddenly step down for personal reasons? And as for Malika, how secure is any spot on the ESPN throne when the floor keeps shifting underfoot? The network has dodged plenty of scandals in the past, but this one feels different, more personal, more radioactive, and more likely to drag even the highest names into the fire. If even a fraction of what insiders are whispering is true, ESPN's most watched drama might not be on the debate stage, but in the boardroom. One thing's certain, the fallout from Molly Qerim's departure is just getting started, and every locked door in Bristol suddenly looks like a possible exit for the next unlucky staffer. Will new secrets explode onto the timeline? Is Stephen A. Smith about to face the biggest reckoning of his career? And just how many bodies are buried under the First Take set? Let us know in the comments what you think really happened and whose side you're on as this scandal spirals. This is the wild world of sports media, where nothing stays secret forever. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your inbox is locked, and remember, at ESPN, nobody is ever truly safe.